You did it. You've signed up. Training for your first Ironman. It's pretty daunting. Where to start? Maybe you've spent some money on a flash TT bike or still going down that road. I want to give you a whole lot of advice over my 20 years of racing and coaching. If this is you, you're in the right place, the right video. Hopefully this is the only video you need to watch to give you great value, really good insights on some of the things that are ideal or nice to haves and really important to take into your first Ironman, which is hopefully at least 16 to 20 weeks away or potentially sometime next year. I'm going to share all you need to know around gear, training, fueling and hydration, equipment, and so on, and hopefully make your journey as smooth as possible. There's so much misinformation out there and just loads of training plans and content. Where do you start? Is it 20 hours a week or is 10 hours a week enough? We're not quite sure where to go. All right, so I've broken it up into sort of 5 areas: training, body support, equipment, the fourth discipline, and mental prep. If we go into each of those subjects in detail, you'll be able to get a better idea of where we are. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the nuts and bolts of the actual training. This is where you're going to spend most of your time, and the others are all great. Talking about equipment, mental preparation, etc., and nutrition. We're going to spend most of our time doing this. So I want to give you a little bit more detail and in-depth value around the training. I don't think going into the specific sessions is really important. Coming back to some of my earlier comments and earlier videos, consistency is the champion that you want to try and actually nail for training. After having gone through so many Ironman builds myself, plus all you guys learning from athletes, it doesn't really matter a hell of a lot what you're doing before your first Ironman in terms of exact sessions, but there's some low-hanging fruit fundamentals, so let's dive straight into it. So if we can get our frequency right from the beginning, you have a better chance of building that consistency and it's sticking. And this is back to the how many hours realistically you've got per week. So if we went for 3 swims, 3 bikes, which doesn't sound like much because that's where you're going to spend most of your training time. And depending on injury and history, and we went 3 runs, that's going to give you 9 sessions plus your 2 S&C. Now that can be just 30 minutes. It's sort of 9 to 11 sessions. It sounds a lot, but that's kind of your bare minimum framework, I think. I have mentioned in the past videos 2 swims are okay, and that's all I did. It depends where you're starting from. So if we just kept it simple, and this is the first video you're watching. Now, ideally, we would make that probably 4 bikes because of course it's a volume 180 kilometers, 112 miles. You need a little bit of extra time on the bike. All right. The running, you don't have to do much more than that. It all depends on potentially your outcome goals, your process goals around your first Ironman. Now, how we split these up, I'll dive into a little bit more around that in a second. Okay, so the 3 swims could be literally turning up, getting in the pool, just doing aerobic easy swimming, and you'll get fit, no problem. Then we can break that up into, for example, 1 could be a technical swim, 2 could be more a CSS or a threshold swim, and then your 3rd swim could be endurance. Really simple. Now, how you slice that up, it's not super important. We've got loads of resources for this. But that'll just cover your energy systems and you'll be in great shape for a 3.8 kilometer race. Your bike, the big one is going to be endurance, of course. Now, in the early part of your training, depending how far out you are from the race, you're going to be basically doing all 3 of your rides endurance-based. It depends also where your weaknesses are and strengths in terms of most of us, somewhere along the 3 disciplines, have some area that is better or weaker than the others. You can't go wrong pretty much if you follow a structure like that where you do a longer endurance. Of course, that's your bread and butter. VO2, those are your hard above threshold, severe domain exercise intensity zone. Those can be longer repetitions above 1 minute. And obviously we can do short efforts there before that as a precursor, and then your heel strength carries over so much, biking and running. Time trial specific, plus remember what we say about Ironman, it's the strength that gets you through the race, not necessarily anything else. And you can be super fit, but if you don't have leg strength, you aren't going to finish very well. So that's your swim and bike, really simple. So the second one is, of course, hard, intense efforts. The other one is lower cadence, higher torque sessions, and endurance is just long volume, very strict and controlled heart rate. Now, in the beginning, all three would probably be endurance. You certainly wouldn't do more than 2 hard sessions a week. So that's 1 bike and 1 run. And I'm going to get onto the run in a sec. Now, the run is a little bit trickier. For obvious reasons, much more loading, higher risk of injury. I mentioned this a lot in my videos, just from my background and learning from all the athletes again. Generally, older athletes come into Ironman quite late. They might not have a running background, or they might have been a marathon runner and have moved across to triathlon to put less stress on the body. Now, running doesn't give you the injuries. It's the lack of conditioning or the ramp up too much of increase of mileage or not conditioned enough, doing too much too soon. All right, so you can follow a traditional 10% increase of volume. That's absolutely fine per week in time or kilometers. Just running 3 times a week will elicit some sort of response in, of course, aerobic capacity. So you want to be aerobically fit, especially when you go to a hot race, which most summer triathlons are in the heat. The fitter you are aerobically, the better you deal with heat. You know you've got to run 42 kilometers. You can target it roughly once you're fit. You're running 40 to 45 kilometers a week, which means our body is just used to running a marathon per week. That's a great little basic way to start. Now, that might sound like a lot initially. You obviously build up to that from 20 Ks, 25, 30 Ks, 35, 40 per week. Now, you've got the frequency back up. Remember, it's frequency, volume. This is gold, intensity. Okay, remember, we build up frequency per week, 3 runs, maybe 4 runs if you're coming from a run background, or have a bit more time. Each one creeps up to volume where you can manage and sustain all the bike training, the swim training, and have a social life. Then we start to drip in some intensity. Okay. Now, what will that look like in your kind of run sessions? Hold on one sec. As you can hear, I'm probably quite a fan of heel work on the bike and the run. The carryover is just insane. You get a big boost of bang for your buck for a lower cost of stress on the body in terms of its speed work in disguise, strength, hill work. So I would always have some sort of hill run. Now that could be reps, it could be undulating. It doesn't really matter. Now, if you live in a flat area, you have to use a treadmill. Fortunately, in England, there's just hills everywhere, in Wales and so forth. In Scotland, you'll be grand. If you do hilly work, you will transfer into all distances of running. So that's a staple. You probably thought it and know this. You want to do a brick run so your legs get used to running off the bike. They don't have to be super long here. You've got to be very careful. 1 to 2 a week is enough, and it could be even 10 to 15 minutes off the bike. Obviously, you'll build up longer closer as you get to the race and get more familiar and more specific towards your Ironman. But that just builds the transition. Certainly, if you're coming from no triathlon background, it just feels so foreign. So the more frequent you do it, just the more just gets ingrained, of course. So brick runs, hill runs, and now if you were just going to do 3 runs, you would think, well, one's got to be a long run. Now, this hilly run could be a long run and get quite a lot of bang for your buck. This one, we're going to put a question mark in. It depends on your background, but traditionally we would want to make sure that you've got an endurance run, so you get time on the feet, so what we call zone 2 out of your 7 zones. If you're a little bit fitter and a bit more experienced from a running background, we might turn this into a progressive tempo run where you're getting closer to your marathon pace, for example. So there's elements of endurance obviously in there. It could be tempo, which is around and above your race pace. So that's a little bit more experienced runners. But if you target those 3 runs as a staple week in and week out, you'll be absolutely fine. Where the fourth run comes in is just when you're trying to build up a little bit more volume if you're not getting to that 40 to 45 Ks a week. Now that's not a number that I've just pulled out of my back of my head. It's because the race distance is 42 Ks. A great rule of thumb that I like to abide, at least get the athlete running around their marathon for each week, and that compounds. You don't have to do a hell of a lot of runs. Some of my best Ironman marathons I've done on 50 to 60 Ks a week, and that's a fairly low 3-hour marathon, not super low, but 310 to 315. And again, you only run very well if you conditioned on the bike super well. Okay, so we've covered a little bit about training there. Okay, body support. I would, from the onset, invest in some body maintenance. Now, it doesn't mean having a weekly massage and spending hundreds of pounds a month. If you preempt the niggles and keep the body happy, I find for majority of people, and athletes, I'm one of them, it just prevents every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks in an Ironman build. So invest the time and money before for prevention, and then you don't have to spend the last 2-3 weeks paying huge bills at the physio for something that could have been prevented from some soft tissue maintenance work, depending on your posture, depending on your body shape, size, and your history. The biggest free one here is sleep. Quality and hygiene, not just, oh, I love sleeping, I don't have a problem falling asleep. Is your sleep consistent? There's a lot of books around on this. There's some experts way better than I am. I've read a lot of them. It's consistently comes up huge. Hygiene, so dark, cool, quiet room, not cluttered, staying off your iPhones, your iPads, etc. late at night. Have that hour before bed, wind down. Sleep is crucial. Happy place is about 7 to 9 hours. So you're somewhere in the middle, you're horizontal for around 8 to 9 hours. That would be great. You don't sleep the whole time. That's going to be your biggest bang for your buck, adaptation and repair. And we are designed to sleep. It's free. We are really good at it. It's just some people struggle. So work backwards from your morning, and actually that affects your evening sleep. No caffeine after 12 or 2 is okay. Even if you think you're not sensitive to it, it does affect your sleep. Body support also comprises of making sure you do the fundamental strength work. Don't neglect this, especially for older athletes. You might think it's just a bit of a hassle to do and you don't want sore muscles. Fundamental, non-negotiable, even if it's 2 lots of 20 minutes, 2 lots of 45 minutes a week. You need it for injury prevention, counteracting all the inline stuff you're going to do in one plane of motion, sagittal plane, running, biking. It's pretty flexed over. It's all inward, so we want quite a lot of pull work. We want a lunge and a squat pattern. We want a strong core, because at the back end of the marathon, that's when things are going to fall apart. And if you have some really good foundational strength through the winter and in the build-up, then you just maintain. When the training gets really harder, you just drop down and just maintain your strength, and it'll be super fine. So body support requires the hands-on work plus the strength conditioning work to complement your triathlon, not to make it harder. You never should leave the gym feeling worse. Okay. Right, vitamin and mineral support, that's actually quite crucial, but where do you start with that? It's quite a big area. Paid versus a budget. If you pay, you get a blood panel under 100 pounds. You get a bit of a highlight of where you're at. I would do that at the start and potentially towards the end of your build, just to check where you are. You might be low in certain areas. Big bang for your buck is the classics, really well researched. Some high quality fish oil, definitely some magnesium, really helps support the whole body on multiple, over 300 processes, but also mainly sleep and recovery from your training. Huge research into that. And probably vitamin D, depending where you live in the world, sunshine, sunlight. If you're in the southern hemisphere, you get a lot more sunlight at this time of the year versus northern hemisphere. So relatively affordable, not too super expensive, and huge bang for your buck. Bit of a mineral support. Next up, the fourth discipline. We all hear it. What is that? It's nutrition. Okay, so there's some bare minimums I think you should do, and every athlete should do, and most of it doesn't actually cost anything. Bare minimum, you should understand your sweat losses. Running and biking in different environments. There's no point doing one in winter and then your race is in summer. We all sweat differently. Humans are amazing at sweating. It's not a problem. We just want to manage it. All you're doing in an Ironman is managing heat and managing fluid loss, and of course, the big one, energy. That's actually a little bit easier to handle, to be honest. It's more the homeostasis of hydration through Generally, triathlons in a warmer time of the year. For example, Hawaii, which we've just had. I really think that athletes don't look after their gut, their microbiome enough. Huge evidence now in the last five years or so coming to the light about the gut-brain connection. So it's crucial for health. First and foremost, we do sport for a vehicle for health, and now we've found we want to do competitive long-distance triathlon or ultra running, for example. We neglect the gut, and I've made some really bad mistakes over the years of potentially missing this area, and keeping the diverse microbiome is like crucial for your immune system, and never made the connection to that. Okay, so invest in some knowledge around your gut microbiome, diversification. There's a lot on some really good podcasts at the moment around this area. Understand the role of protein. Endurance athletes are quite carb driven traditionally. There's a lot of evidence now out, and people advocating this that are super intelligent around nutrition and dietetics. Role of protein. Endurance athletes just don't tend to eat enough. If you nail that, your satiation, you'll feel fuller for longer, muscle wastage, muscle growth, hormone balance, generally is going to support your training. Good rule of thumb, 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. So it might sound like a lot initially, build up to that. You'll find your happy place. It can be animal proteins, it's easier to get. If you're plant-based, that's also fine, it's just harder to maintain. If you are plant-based, just be aware that your B vitamins might be super low if you're training 15, 20 hours a week, and I would get that checked. Huge area for vegetarians, vegans. Amino acids, which you get from animal proteins, we just need to get some other essential ones from other sources, because you don't get it from your diet. You need to learn how to eat like a champion. Yes, I said it. So there's low carb approach, high carb approach, somewhere in the middle. Wherever you are, we all get there to the end point pretty much in the same. Whatever approach you decide to take, just stick to it. Don't be one of those that keep yo-yoing. Your body hates that. It disrupts your microbiome. One minute you've got high energy availability, then very low energy availability. It adapts to whatever format it tends to go. So if you're a low carb athlete, you'll adapt to that and be quite metabolically flexible and quite efficient at fat oxidation. If you're a high carb athlete, yes, you'll tend to just demand and adapt to eating more carbohydrates. One view is not certainly wrong or right, but it's what's right for you in this moment, in your age and your time in your life, and also male versus female. Okay, so just be very aware on that. There's a lot out there. I've done some studying around low carb and a little bit around ketogenic and applied some of it, and I've also have a different stance around carbohydrates that I've learned from high level scientists that give advice to professional athletes in our space. So bits and both, and ultimately we get there in the end. I've actually created a little recipe cookbook, and you can dive into there for a few recipes and have a look at that if you're after it. I'll share it out. The other part of the fourth discipline, yes, race fueling. I would trial 2 to 3 different types of brands, fuel source. I did a good video on this around solids, semi-solids, liquids. We've got to work out where you're going to get your source of fuel. Okay, that's quite tightly regulated. And then we work on the hydration as a separate area, and that's just through a little bit of trial and error and some field testing. And at the bare minimum, I'll do just a free online sweat test, which you can find at precisionhydration.com. Just gauge ideas of your 3 levers of hydration, which is sodium, fuel, and fluids. Otherwise, seek out a sweat tester, which, for example, I do with some of my elite athletes and regular amateurs. We spend an hour and we just look at your sodium content in your sweat, and there's testers all around actually the world with precision hydration. This is the vital part of finishing the race, is nutrition. It's the most underrated part, and it can just result in a DNF straight away. It's so important for performance and actually just finishing. So this I need you to spend quite a bit of time on. The training is one main element of it, but the fourth discipline, swim, bike, run, and nutrition. Number 4, equipment. All right. We love buying gear, don't we? Especially bikes. Let's start just with the swim. I did a little short video again on what I thought the 3 essential bits of swimming kit you should have for training. So have a look at that on previous videos. Let's just start with a wetsuit. You really need a good fitting wetsuit, which sounds fairly obvious. You don't need to get the high top end range one. They do a top end range, every brand, mainly to make high margins of profit, but also people want the best. I find the middle ground is great, and it'll offer you know the best fit versus function. Most Ironmans are 85% of them are wetsuit illegal, so it's quite important. You're spending over an hour in the water for most people. Average time is about an hour and a quarter. There's bits of kit that you obviously require for swimming, which are in that other video, but really good iridium lenses, so for the glare, and some clear lenses, goggles that fit your face, not just a brand that sounds good because a professional athlete uses it. Some of them sit inside the sockets, some of them sit over. You'll find out straight away which ones leak, which ones don't. It's based on your face and your fit, and then stick to one pair that you like. All right, some more equipment around the swim, some anti-chafe cream. It's some of it's a gel or cream. It just helps. Some people get a really bad wetsuit chafe. I personally don't. But if you're in a salty body of water, you generally can from all the straps, and if there's areas you're not used to. I've been wearing wetsuits for a while, so tend to don't get it. And sometimes it's a non-wetsuit swim, so you have to wear a swim skin. It's the definitely minority of races, Kona being the exception to the rule, and that can also dig into the sides, especially around your armpits. So getting some anti-chafe around there, especially in salty water, is a huge gain for the sake of £5. Let's move on to the bike. Okay, big area. I think bike fit's the most important gain you can do. Comfort is king. You can have the best bike, your nicest equipment, but you can hold it for half an hour on the turbo. Great, but when it comes to an Ironman, you want to be able to hold it for 4.5 to 7 hours. And the more you're fiddling around and fidgeting, the slower you go. Comfort is king for a good run. Okay, so I would invest the money in that. Probably next bit of kit is race wheels are the biggest bang in terms of aero advantage and what you'll gain for speed. So that and an AeroFit, and then all the other bits are add-ons that cost quite a lot of money for a small return of gain in speed. So when it's your first Ironman, you just want this nice balance, I think, of making it sure it's pretty comfortable so you actually finish the race all right and you can run and don't have to walk the whole thing, and you are moving quite quick for really minimal effort. So we tend to not chase power. Speed is our friend in an Ironman, where a lot of people chase power numbers on indoor Swift racing. It's not the case with Ironman. Another bit of kit, for the bike, new tires essential, and they need to be tubeless ready, so have sealant. You'll be amazed how many people turn up at a race and they get punches and they haven't had it in training, they don't know what they're doing. I'd invest in some real time, even if it means paying someone for an hour, just to go through some basic bike equipment management and how to change tires and punctures on the road. Bit of gear maintenance. You'll be amazed the DNFs just from that, not knowing how to work your kit on race day, and certainly your own bike. Run, there's not a huge amount of kit besides obviously GPS watch and a heart rate strap, which you'll use for biking as well. I would emphasize get a run analysis done. It's the biggest investment you can do, because there's brands out there, but you need to get the fit right of the right brand to your foot type. Someone that's experienced in a reputable run shop. I know a good one in London that I've used for over 15-20 years, and Profeed is the leading biomechanics, but we're not all in London. So somewhere that you trust, that they do at least a video and get analysis of you running and find the right function of shoe for your foot. The most important, I think, mental prep, number 5. You need to prepare yourself mentally for a few things that are going to unfold on race day. We don't exactly know what's going to happen, but everyone's going to suffer. No one's going to have an easy day. If it was easy, we'd all be doing it. You need to understand that you're going to suffer probably at around 20 Ks on the run and be ready for it. And it's okay. You might have to slow down. You might have to have a word with yourself. You might have to see someone that you love and care and have a smile and a quick hug, and you'll be on your way. It's amazing what this does to the physical. So this will tell you to stop as a governing factor, but actually you can push way beyond that. You need to practice what's going to happen on race day, all eventualities. The amount of people that don't bother practicing how to change puncture a tire, can't even fix their bike, gears, dropping a bottle, losing nutrition, etc. Positive self-talk throughout the day. That's really important. You've got to keep telling yourself, and it really works. So you try that in training. I want you to look at your evidence as well of your training leading into a race. You'll see all the work you've done, and that's going to promote when things go really bad. Confidence grows with the reinforcement of the work you've done and the positive self-talk, and you've done that in training. So that builds the confidence going into the race. Race results and previous performance can help with that, but you need to encourage that, and it comes from actually telling yourself positive self-talk through the training and actually having a word with yourself. If you are struggling in the race, you've got to think of others during the race. So people that have contributed to it. 2 tactics I use: smile every mile on the run. It's amazing when you smile at someone, they smile back immediately, and yeah, that lifts you up. And then another great one is every mile you run, 26 miles, dedicate that to someone. So it's for John, mile 1, my mom, mile 2, Auntie Liz, mile 3. It's really quite cool. You run it for that person. It's amazing how it works. And I use that for some of my marathon runners as well when they're doing a fresh race. Embrace it. No one said it was easy. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. This is a big deal. It's going to be a 9 to 15, 17 hour ordeal. So prepare yourself for a big day out, a big training day with 8 stations and some friends. It's the best way to think about it. The chimp on the shoulder, the monkey, is going to come, and it's going to come in to you on the marathon probably, or potentially halfway through the bike. You're not good enough. You should have done more training. Wait for it. It's going to come. The chimp always comes, the irrational brain. Have a word with it, give it a name, put it in a box. Hey George, I'm coming back to you. I knew you were coming. Stuff this. I've already trained for this. And try get in training on those long days. Try and get to that place where you have some dark days and the monkey comes. And just be amazed when you have this conversation with your imaginary monkey. And that's just basic psychology training that they've worked out, and they've called it the chimp. It's a good book called The Chimp Paradox. All right, so the key points from this whole long chat, if you've lasted this long, you can see that there's quite an emphasis on training. There's an emphasis on body work. There's some things you have to think about is equipment in terms of swim, bike and run, body support, and we know nutrition is crucial, but mental prep is the other one that I really wanted you to focus on. If you found this valuable, really try and implement that. Shoot me a message either on here. In the link below, we'll have my email and Instagram. You can ask me if you really want some more help. I've got a couple of spaces left for one-to-one, and we can try and make sure your first experience is the best ever and not run into loads of problems. Okay, feel free to reach out.